How does one cat survive not one, not two, but three warship disasters during the deadliest war in history? Meet Oscar, known as Unsinkable Sam, the black and white ship's cat who purportedly survived the sinking of the German battleship Bismarck, the British destroyer HMS Cossack, and the aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royal, all within 6 months of 1941. Found floating on a wooden board among the wreckage of the mighty Bismarck, this extraordinary feline was pulled from the icy Atlantic waters to begin the most improbable survival story of World War II. 5 months after Oscar's miraculous rescue from the Bismarck's wreckage, the black and white cat had settled into life aboard HMS Cossack, the British destroyer that had pulled him from the icy Atlantic waters. The crew had named their new mascot Oscar, and he seemed to bring a touch of normalcy to the deadly work of hunting U-boats and escorting convoys through the treacherous North Atlantic. The Bismarck had been one of the largest battleships ever built by Germany, conducting only one offensive operation that lasted 8 days in May 1941. For Oscar, however, it was simply the beginning of an extraordinary journey that would defy all odds. The sailors aboard Cossack had no idea that their feline companion would soon face another test of survival that would cement his place in naval legend. Oscar padded through the narrow corridors of the destroyer, his paws finding purchase on the steel deck plates as the ship rolled through heavy seas. The crew had grown fond of their unexpected passenger, watching him navigate the cramped quarters with the sure-footed grace that only cats possess. He had survived the impossible once. Surely lightning couldn't strike twice. But the North Atlantic in 1941 was a killing ground where lightning struck with terrifying frequency. German U-boats prowled beneath the waves, their periscopes cutting through the surface like sharks' fins. On October 23, 1941, while Cossack was escorting a convoy from Gibraltar to the United Kingdom, she was struck by a single torpedo fired by the German submarine U-563. The explosion tore through the destroyer's hull with devastating force, killing many of her crew instantly. The ship was taken in tow, but the weather worsened and the tow was slipped on October 26th. For 4 agonizing days, Cossack fought to stay afloat, her crew battling flooding and damage, while Oscar somehow clung to life amid the chaos. The destroyer that had helped sink the mighty Bismarck was now herself, dying in the same waters where she had achieved her greatest victory. Cossack sank in the Atlantic west of Gibraltar on October 27, 1941. As the destroyer slipped beneath the waves, taking with her the men who had rescued him from the Bismarck's wreckage, Oscar faced the impossible once again. The mathematical odds of any living creature surviving 2 separate naval disasters in the same war were astronomical. Yet somehow, as rescue ships combed the debris field, they found him, a small black and white cat clinging to floating wreckage, alive against all reason. The sailors who pulled him from the water for the second time in 6 months could hardly believe their eyes. This was no longer just a cat. This was something approaching a miracle, a living testament to survival against impossible odds. But Oscar's incredible journey was far from over. His next destination would create an ironic twist that would make his story even more extraordinary. After surviving 2 impossible shipwrecks in 6 months, do you think Oscar was genuinely the luckiest cat alive? Or would you be getting suspicious that this feline might actually be cursed? Drop your answer in the comments below. What Oscar didn't know was that his next ship would create the most ironic twist of his entire wartime saga. 3 weeks after Oscar's second impossible rescue, the black and white cat found himself aboard HMS Ark Royal, the aircraft carrier whose swordfish torpedo bombers had helped cripple his original ship, the Bismarck. The irony was extraordinary. Oscar was now living aboard the very vessel whose aircraft had jammed the Bismarck's rudder with a torpedo strike, forcing the German battleship into the slow death spiral that had set his survival story in motion. HMS Ark Royal had gained a reputation as a lucky ship, surviving countless air attacks and near misses throughout the war. The crew began to believe that Oscar shared this luck, that perhaps his presence was a good omen for their own survival. After all, what were the odds that one cat could survive 2 separate naval disasters? Surely his streak of impossible fortune would continue aboard Britain's most celebrated aircraft carrier. Oscar settled into the routine of carrier life, navigating the vast flight deck where swordfish biplanes launched and landed with thunderous precision. The ship's company had grown fond of their feline mascot, watching him pad through the hangar bays and mess halls with the confidence of a cat who had already cheated death twice. He seemed to possess an almost supernatural ability to find safety in the most dangerous places on Earth. But the Mediterranean in November 1941 was a graveyard for ships. On the 13th of November 1941, Ark Royal was struck amidships by a torpedo fired by the German submarine U-81. The explosion caused the massive carrier to shake and list heavily to starboard. For 14.5 hours, desperate efforts were made to save the ship, to pump out the flooding compartments and tow her to Gibraltar. But the mathematics of naval engineering had turned against them. She sank on November 14, 1941, only 25 miles from Gibraltar. Oscar faced his 3rd shipwreck in 6 months. The statistical impossibility of his situation had crossed from remarkable into the realm of the supernatural. And once again, among the floating debris and oil slicks, rescue ships found a small black and white cat clinging to wreckage, alive when by all logic he should have been dead. The story of Unsinkable Sam became legend, but like all wartime legends, its complete accuracy remains shrouded in the fog of war. Some historians suggest that while Oscar certainly existed and survived at least one shipwreck, the tale of his presence aboard all 3 vessels may have grown in the telling, as stories do when they capture the imagination of sailors, desperate for hope in the darkest days of the war. The limited documentation connecting the same cat to all 3 disasters leaves room for doubt about whether every detail unfolded exactly as the legend claims. Yet, regardless of where fact ends and folklore begins, Oscar's story endures as one of World War II's most beloved tales of survival against impossible odds. In a conflict that claimed millions of human lives and sent countless ships to the bottom of the ocean, the image of one small cat repeatedly defying death became a symbol of resilience that transcended the brutal mathematics of war. Whether Unsinkable Sam's story is completely true or partially mythologized, it represents something larger than one cat's remarkable luck. It embodies the human need to find hope and meaning in the face of overwhelming darkness, to believe that sometimes, against all odds, survival is possible. Subscribe for more incredible wartime survival stories.